Welcome, I'm Kinetic Symphony. This is Dave. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the supernatural. Case file number 1692, written by Spetsy 55. Dr. Dan, the Plague Man. My son brought home the plague from school, and after 3 weeks of vomiting, I went to the doctor. I'm in Australia, so it's not as expensive here. Because it was an emergency appointment, I did not have the possibility to pick my doctor, so the doctor I was seeing for the day was Dr. Dan. I walk in. Yes, I'm sick, but I also drove to this appointment and had been at work earlier in the day, so I'm not on death's door. And there sits a young white Australian man who did an absolutely excellent job, and off I went home, with a bunch of antibiotics. When I get home, my husband has also succumbed to the plague, and I highly recommend Dr. Dan. I tell my husband all about Dr. Dan, and the next day, he makes an appointment and goes. Imagine my surprise when my husband came back with a bunch of antibiotics and a story to tell. He then proceeds to tell me that while Dr. Dan is indeed fantastic, he is not white, he is not young, he is middle-aged, and he is not Australian. In fact, he is of Indian descent. Guys, I'm telling you, I would have gone to court and testified under oath that Dr. Dan was a young white Australian guy. I even looked on their website at the doctors that are available. They have a picture of each doctor on their website, and there was Dr. Dan, a man of Indian descent, middle-aged, and with a darker complexion. I have never hallucinated in my life, and although I was sick, I wasn't that sick, so I have no explanation. That is the one and only thing of its kind to ever happen to me. All I know is Dr. Dan was awesome, and had me back up and running within 3 days. I also asked reception if there was a student doctor or a fill-in doctor at the time, and they said no. It was only ever Dr. Dan. Something else I remembered that I will prove it was the same doctor as my husband and I saw, was that when my husband went in, he said to the doctor, "My wife was in yesterday and she was given antibiotics. I'm feeling sick with the same thing I imagine, so I'll need them too." To which Dr. Dan said to my husband, "Yes, I remember your wife, she was quite sick." So that kind of proves it was the same guy, at least to me it does. Okay, so I also have looked on my antibiotics package, and the same with my husband's, and both were prescribed by Dr. Dan. I have also looked at my Medicare history, and it shows both my husband and I claim history. We are on the same card. The latest two were both for an appointment with Dr. Dan. Both of these things prove it was the same person. Case answer file 1692. Dr. Dan, the Plague Man. Yeah, quantum immortality indeed. The plague, so-called, claimed your life in the originating universe, which is very sad to think about. Every time I come back to that, in that universe, people just think you died. Your soul persists in this universe and many, many others. And so, yeah, in this universe, you did indeed see Dr. Dan, and he did save your life. But the Dr. Dan in this universe, which is a big difference, is of Indian descent, not Australian. So that's a massive difference. So this universe, it might be very far away from your originating one. Maybe the plague, so-called, took you out in many, many universes up until this one. It explains a lot. But it is nevertheless bittersweet knowing so many yous are gone in those universes. It's just the mourning process for, everyone in those universes that loved you, and now you're gone. I can't get over that fact. I hope I've never died, but we probably all have. I wonder if there's anyone that goes through an entire lifetime and never dies once before old age claims them. Maybe, if someone is very sheltered. But it is so easy to die. So many things can kill you. Try to be safe as you can, to spare the emotional trauma from those who love you here. But of course, sometimes things happen and we can't control it, and it's not your fault at all, okay? I'm not blaming you in any way. But I'm just saying take the measures you can to try not to die. Even though we have apparently, a billion trillion cat lives. In some ways, that makes me want to be more risky. Go rock climbing and skydiving again. Not sure I mentioned that. I went skydiving when I was 19. Anyways, no tangents. I'm good. Next story. Case file number 1693. Written by Character Educator 96. Gazebo gone? It's a backyard phenomenon. This must have happened when I was 16 or 17 years old. I just asked my old friend about it the other day to confirm whether I was crazy or not, and if I'm remembering things incorrectly. She confirmed everything. One day, I was at my friend's house, typical detached home in southern Ontario. Each backyard had fences as the homes were surrounded by each other. My friend had a huge, fully set up gazebo in our backyard. It was set up properly and had been there for quite some time with no issues. We were in the basement one spring or summer afternoon. Weather was sunny, warm, normal, and I heard a loud bang come from upstairs. Naturally, we ran up and asked her mom what the noise was, to which she replied that she wasn't sure. Eventually, we all ended up looking out the upstairs window in her mom's bedroom, which allowed us to see both her and her next-door neighbor's backyard, to the left. We were in shock. Her humongous, full-size gazebo had somehow levitated and landed perfectly straight and normal in her neighbor's backyard. It makes no sense. I googled that residential fences in my area are 6 to 8 feet tall. It wasn't a small item like an umbrella that could just pick up in the wind and land. Like, even if it somehow fully levitated, it shouldn't have landed in perfect condition. No one remembers it even being remotely windy that day. This was freaking weird. My friend and I are still shaken about it to this day and don't understand it one bit. Crap could have been in the news for sure. Caissons file 1693. Gazebo gone? It's a backyard phenomenon. So yeah, I couldn't see this happening, even if it was one of those gazebos that is mostly just like metal rods and cloth. But if it was a wooden gazebo, no chance at all. Even if it was one of the lighter gazebos, they're still 100 pounds, 200 pounds. You need a lot of wind to be able to lift it up, and then for it to land squarely as it did? No way. Maybe if there was a tornado in the area, but otherwise, this one I don't know. It can't be DOP, can it? It's almost like quantum tunneling through the fence. You know, at the smallest level for nuclear fusion to happen, particles, usually electrons, can zip across very small areas, not travel through them at all, but just appear from one place to another. It's becoming an issue for CPU design as well. Because the transistor gates are so small, electrons can zip through and turn from a 0 to a 1 or 1 to 0, without that being the intent. But this only happens at the very, very tiniest of levels. So, to have this happen at the macro scale is unimaginable. But technically not impossible. If you wait long enough, anything can spawn from nothing. But it is so unlikely to happen that it shouldn't. DOP doesn't fit. Quantum immortality doesn't fit because everyone was surprised that it happened. Wonder how the neighbors reacted. I don't know. Very mystical gazebo indeed. Case file number 1694. Written by It's Garden Time, nerd. When lost and found, my jaw hit the ground. In summer 2021, I bought a jewelry box at an estate sale. Since college, I'd been keeping my jewelry, hair stuff, etc. in one of those little plastic drawer sets you buy at Walmart, and it was time for an upgrade. I moved over the jewelry I wear most often, and left the rest in plastic drawers. Prior to all this, years ago, my high school boyfriend had bought me the very generous gift of a necklace and earring set from the Swarovski Museum while he was on a trip to Austria. A sparkling green crystal shell on a turtle-shaped silver pendant with matching round crystal studs. I was very disappointed to lose one of the earrings just a couple years later. I wore the remaining stud by itself a few times, opposite a small hoop. I tried to wear it in my cartilage piercing, but that was a no-go since the post was too thick and it hurt. I combed through those plastic drawers so many times over the years, just in case. After moving among a few states and even more residences, it was more of a habit than anything. I knew it wasn't there. Back to present-ish. On some certain day in early 2022, after several months' use of the jewelry box, I found myself unenticed by its contents, and turned to the plastic drawers to see if I could find any more interesting earrings. A green crystal stud caught my eye in the drawer, and I thought to myself, hang on, didn't I just see this in the jewelry box? Didn't I? I picked up the earring, turned around, and looked back in the jewelry box. Lo and behold, there was the green earring, sitting in the box, its twin in my hand. There were two of them. This was impossible, and yet two. I put them right in, eyes wide, and went to work. That night I was hesitant to take them off, worried that one might disappear while I slept. When I awoke, both remained on my bedside table, and I'm very pleased to report that they have stayed together ever since. Caissons file 1694. When lost and found, my jaw hit the ground. The turtles were reunited. Nice. But again, it comes back to DOP events where the object disappears, okay? They reappear even though the original owner is far away in a different location in space-time. Why do they reappear at all next to the person? If they disappeared and then reappeared in the originating spot, that would make a bit more sense. And you could say, yeah, that's just entirely random. But this, no. They are still tethered to you. They go out of phase. But the properties, the code is like imprinted on you. And no matter where you go, they'll reappear near to where you are eventually. So maybe one day, the 2 tennis balls I've lost will just drop on my head. And no matter where I am, if I go visit Japan, they could drop over there. Now time for the quote of the day. Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Our scars have the power to remind us that the past was real. It's almost like an Inception, where they have the spinny thing, whatever you call those, to remind them of if this is a dream or not. You have your token that comes with you. A scar is similar to that. It binds you to the past, so you know this already happened. It's not just a faulty memory. It's real. Now, I'm not saying Dr. Hannibal Lecter was a role model. Of course not. But it is interesting how the trials and tribulations of our lives, if they leave a mark, well, it's a postmark in history itself. It's something you can rely on to know what really happened, beyond just memory. Kind of trying to put a positive spin on a negative. Do you have any scars? I have a few, but nothing major. I just have, like, my middle finger is broken because when I was young, it got caught in a car door as it was slammed shut and broke apart. Never reset, but not a critical thing or anything. There's no pain, just the bone grew at an angle. Yep, that's it. Alright, on that positive note, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.